in huge numbers to keep up with her in the cities, both Philly and in Pittsburgh. Very, very heavy turnout here. No early voting across Pennsylvania, as you know, so we will know what Pennsylvanians think at 8 p.m. tonight. Jake?
All right, Miguel, thank you so much. The Trump forces are counting on doing at least all right in western Pennsylvania, while the Clinton campaign needs to pile up votes on the other end of the state, namely the areas around Philadelphia and the city of Philadelphia. We're going to be watching both ends of the state. There are plenty more crucial spots on the map. CNN Inside Politics anchor John King joins us now with a quick overview. John?
Jake, let's start with some of the things we'll look at early. 20, 30, maybe 40 counties I'll be looking at through the night, depending on how close it is. But, you know, the polls close early. I'm going to go back to the 2012 map here as we wait to fill in the 2016 map. We start to get early poll closings in the 6 o'clock hour, then into the 7 o'clock hour out into Indiana. Indiana we expect to be red, right? Mike Pence is from Indiana, traditionally red state. The Vigo County in western Indiana has a pretty good track record. It's only been wrong twice in the last 100 years. 15 elections in a row. It has picked the winner in presidential politics, just barely for President Obama last time. But Vigo County has a pretty good track record, so we'll watch that as the Indiana results start to come in early. Then you move to the east just a little bit, we'll also get some Kentucky results. Now again, Kentucky's most likely going to be red for Donald Trump, but we can do a little CSI, some clues. How's Donald Trump doing in coal country down here? Because communities like this, you can find them in southern Ohio. You can also find them, Jake, over in Virginia, which we'll get in the 7 o'clock hour. Clinton has been consistently ahead in Virginia, but we'll want to watch. Is Donald Trump running it up out here in the rural areas? And how's he doing in the Washington suburbs, like Prince William County, not that far from here? Used to be a Republican county. Look how much President Obama won it by 4 years, 57-41. Why? Democrats are doing better with those college-educated suburban white voters, but there's also been a Latino explosion in Prince William County. Now, even if Clinton is winning Virginia, the margin might tell us a lot about how Donald Trump's going to do in some other places, notably North Carolina to the south, and that suburban vote might tell us a lot about, you mentioned Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area. No question. They call it the T. You have made another at the table. This is your home state. You know it very well. See all this red? Donald Trump's running it up out here. Miguel Marquez was just talking about it. So Hillary Clinton has to do well out here. The vote count tends to come in a little slower here, but as it starts to come in Pennsylvania at the 8 o'clock hour, first we look at Center City, Philadelphia. She has to run it up, Jake, by 400,000 or more votes in this area. The mayor can talk about that, I think. And then you come here to Bucks County. That's Montgomery, and then over to Bucks County. This is the more blue collar of those collar counties right around the suburbs. You see President Obama winning, but just barely, 50-49. The last time Republicans won your great home state of Pennsylvania was 1988. George H.W. Bush won the suburb. That's what we're going to watch tonight. A, is Clinton winning the city big? Is she winning the suburbs? And if she is winning the suburbs, by how much? In a close race, the margins matter.
And John, obviously, Donald Trump wants to crack Hillary Clinton's blue wall, which includes the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Are there any other areas well, you'll be looking to see if he is making those cracks in the blue wall?
Absolutely. Let's start in Pennsylvania. Again, it's an 8 o'clock state. Donald Trump went to Scranton just yesterday. Lackawanna County happens to be the hometown, the birthplace of Vice President Joe Biden. So look at this. That's in 1988. Let me bring it back forward into the more recent elections, 63-36. This is an area where, again, Democrats need to run it up in Pennsylvania where you have those Democratic voters. So let's see. Is Donald Trump going to carry Lackawanna County? I don't think that's a safe bet. But are the margins closer? That's how we'll know if Pennsylvania is in play and if the blue wall might be cracked. Because if you start to see that in a place like the Scranton area, guess what? Then you might see it as well, A, across in Ohio, which is more Republican. But then when you get to Michigan a little bit later in the night, what about Macomb County, just north of Detroit, home of the legendary Reagan Democrats back in the day? So the Scranton area, north of Detroit in the suburbs, that's where we'll look for the early evidence of whether that blue wall is indeed cracking or Clinton is holding.
All right, John King, thanks. Let's bring in the panel. We have with us CNN political commentator and conservative writer Mary Catherine Ham, CNN senior political reporter Nia Malika Henderson, CNN political analysts David Gergen and Kirsten Powers, Trump supporters Kayleigh McEnany and Andre Bauer. They're on the far left and far right of your screen. Andre is the former lieutenant governor of South Carolina. In the middle of this table, Clinton supporters Dan Pfeiffer and former Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter. Mr. Mayor, let me just start with you because we were talking about Pennsylvania, and you heard John King say that the Clinton team needs to rack up about 400,000 votes in the city of Philadelphia. Is turnout that heavy? Are you going to be able to do that?
It's significantly heavy. Although we talk about my own polling place, folks were lined up at 6:30 this morning to get ready for polls opening at 7.
Is that abnormal?
It's unusual. So But other reports are being analyzed. We'll get election official reports, but overall turnout is significantly up in Philadelphia. We expect the same in suburbs, as well as at least in Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and up through the Lehigh Valley. Those are the key areas, those are the key areas for Secretary Clinton.
Kaylee, are there any specific areas that you're going to be looking at tonight as the results start to come in to give you an indication? I know you're a numbers person. Give you an indication about how well Donald Trump's going to do.
Well, Pennsylvania is always kind of that elusive state that Republicans think they can get it. They never quite, it's never quite within reach. You know, Donald Trump, though, I think he's a different kind of candidate. He has more of a popular streak. He might get it. For me, what I am looking at is New Hampshire. Because I think if you look at the Real Clear Politics averages, we can get 265, and that's with Nevada, Florida, Ohio, and Iowa. We can get 265. Donald Trump's winning the averages narrowly. But we need one more state. And that one more state, I think, can be New Hampshire, plus the Maine 2nd Congressional District. So New Hampshire is an early state that's polls close early. We're doing well there. I'm very happy.
Ian Malika, let me ask you, how is voting going? Have you heard many reports of irregularities or things proceeding smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, there are always sort of irregularities that pop up. Billions and billions of people who are going to vote today. And I think it's hard to know based on, kind of anecdotal reports about long lines or not long lines. We have no idea what's going to happen. We've seen in the early votes sort of patterns that might benefit Hillary Clinton in some states like Florida and Nevada, and then we've seen tightening of polls in places like New Hampshire, places like Michigan as well. I mean, you always hear on a day like this, and we've heard it throughout this campaign, that this is the most consequential election ever. But at this point, it really does feel like this. With this election, with history on the line for either of these candidates, the Supreme Court obviously on the line, and a real guess as to what the future of the Republican Party looks like as well. And at this point, all we can do is sit and wait to see what these hundreds of millions of voters are going to say.
David, what are you going to be looking for tonight?
Florida. For starters, it will come in early. We'll have a very good clue where this is going. I think there are two things about this avalanche of voting that we're seeing. One is the Latino vote. That may be the sleeper story of the campaign, of the election tonight. If Florida is delivered by Latinos, that sort of puts it away. But Nevada, Colorado, and all these other states, maybe even North Carolina. The other thing is, I've been wondering during the day with this great outpouring, is with so many people voting, will this possibly be a catharsis for the country? That people will feel they finally had a chance to give voice, and the people who are going to win are going to feel like we've sort of taken back our country. Because the people on both sides are so angry about this. But I do think there's something fairly encouraging about the fact so many people are coming out.
And Dan, let me ask you, what are you looking for? You're a numbers guy. You were on the Obama team in 08 and 12, and the Obama team that was a pretty famous team in terms of like analyzing the numbers.
Sure, I think the ballgame tonight is really Michigan and Pennsylvania because the CNN map is 268. The Clinton team and the Obama folks have looked at the early vote numbers in Nevada. Say Nevada has gone. Clinton has that in the back. So she is above 270. You're going to have to steal Michigan and Pennsylvania. I think that's very, very hard, if not impossible.
What do you think, Andre?
I think it's number one for our country. It's great that we have this high participation for a change. People really have paid attention this time, and hopefully people will get engaged in the process, starting at a polling place and then supporting candidates in the future. I mean, that's really the key to this country, is if you want change, getting engaged. And so that's what I take away more than anything. It's been a divisive race from both sides, and both candidates are flawed. No matter who you're supporting tomorrow, I hope we all wake up with a positive outlook that our country's going to move forward, and we're going to try to all be a bigger part of what makes this country great, and that is all having a voice. And so I'm refreshed. Florida's big to me to see what happens. We had talked earlier about Marco Rubio looking like he's doing very well, and I think that's interesting to study as well. But many days after this election's over with, we're all going to study this thing, scratching our heads, and the Republicans are going to have to look at how to tap into that Latino vote, no matter what happens today. To write that much of the electoral vote off, I think, is wrong. And those people, I think, really will come home to the Republican Party in the end.
Mary Catherine, you voted in Virginia. I'm not going to ask you who you voted for, but were the lines long? Was there an active, excited electorate?
Well, there's some early vote in Virginia. When I was there at mid-morning, the lines were not long, but they've never been long in Northern Virginia during presidential elections. I've never had that particular issue. But the thing that strikes me about this race is that so much has to fall for Donald Trump. Like, it has a couple lucky breaks, and to get a little southern on you, it is like covering your grill in a hurricane. Like, there's only so much you can hold down at one time, and like some corners are going to fly up, and I think that's the challenge that he faces.
And you voted also. I'm not going to ask you who you voted for, but what are you looking for tonight, Kirsten?
Well, I think the same as David. I mean, Florida, it comes early, and I think it's going to tell us a lot. Obviously, he can't win without Florida, so Democrats are actually feeling pretty good about Florida, so it could be over early if that happens. But in a sort of broader sense, I'm really interested in watching the Latino vote, but the women's vote, to see what happens. It's possible that Hillary Clinton could win married women for the first time in 20 years since her president, and since her husband won.
First time a Democrat.
Yeah, sorry, but since a Democrat won, last time won was her husband. So, we're going to watch the swing probably from Romney being up among college white women, educated women, to maybe swinging in favor of Democrats. This is momentous.
Yeah, lots more to talk about. Some breaking news. We just learned that Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina has voted, and he did not vote for Donald Trump. Instead, he voted for conservative Gavin McMullen. That and more to talk about ahead. We are expecting to get the first wave of exit polls in about 30 minutes. These are still early hours in a marathon night of election coverage. Our political team, correspondents are spread across the country to bring you all the developments as they happen. Stay with us.
The following is from the Amazon original, Man in the High Castle, streaming December 16th on Amazon Prime Video.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Is film so reality like ours, but not ours? This is our moment. We must not hesitate.
It's not safe here. You should leave.
This isn't the man I want to be. I'd like to resign. You don't get to resign. Man is only as strong as the people around him. And for him, he must give everything. Because everything he has done has been for nothing.
My name is Juliana Crane. I need asylum.
Welcome to the right. You know I need no charges to order your death.
I saw something. The city was destroyed by an atomic bomb.
You proved yourself, kid. Think how proud your father will be. We're done. You had a dream of the past. No, it didn't feel like a dream. Most people are different, depending on whether they're hungry, safe, or scared.
Election Day 2016, a day that frankly could not come soon enough for many Americans after one of the nastiest and most divisive presidential campaigns in American history. Millions of Americans are casting their votes today, making their voices heard at the ballot box. The outcome of this historic election now in your hands. Donald Trump, meanwhile, still refusing to commit to accepting the results. He equivocated in an interview with a Tampa Bay radio station this morning. We'll be bringing you complete coverage of exit polling and CNN's projections throughout the evening. Right now, let's go to Jessica Schneider. She's in Warren, Michigan, a battleground state, surprisingly.
Yeah, it is surprising, Jake. The candidates have been focusing a lot of energy here, them along with their surrogates. I'm in Macomb County right now. This is one of the counties Donald Trump County, home of the Reagan Democrats. This is the blue-collar suburbs of Detroit. Donald Trump hoping that his message of jobs and trade resonate here. Now, I just got off the phone with the county executive here. He said that the turnout already has been incredible. You can see inside this polling area right now. We're not allowed inside. But the same stream of people. This is where 3 different precincts are voting throughout the day. And this is what it's been like all week, all day long. just about 5 miles down the road, I heard there's about a 2-hour wait. The county executive is telling me they should be on track to hit the same sort of record turnout that they saw back in 1980 as well as 2008. We're talking about 69% of registered voters showing up today, a big day. Now, Macomb County, interestingly, though Donald Trump is counting on this county as one of the ones that might be able to push him over the brink here in Michigan, Macomb County itself, it voted for President Obama in 2008 and 2012, so Hillary Clinton, of course, hoping that that holds true for this election. But it is a county in flux. As I talked to the county executive, he said it is a county divided. So at this point, uncertain which way it could go, but it could mean big things for Donald Trump, or it could mean big things for Hillary Clinton. So we'll see. But of course, all eyes on Michigan, when just about 2 weeks ago, we weren't so sure that this was even a state we had to look twice at. Jake?
All right, Jessica Schneider in Warren, Michigan, thank you so much. As we mentioned, even before the polls opened in Nevada this morning, Donald Trump and his campaign were trying to dispute the results to a degree. His lawyers filing a lawsuit last night over early voting in that state. Just a short time ago, a judge ruled against the Trump campaign. Jim Sciutto joins us now with the latest on that. Jim, when Trump was at the polls today in New York, he talked about his concern about voter fraud. Explain what this legal challenge in Nevada is all about.
Well, that's right. This morning, Trump was talking about a particular kind of voter fraud for which we found no evidence. That is, people going to machines, voting Republican, those machines automatically switching those votes to Democrat. We haven't seen evidence of that being widespread in any way. But in Nevada, the case was about keeping polling stations open later than their initial closing time, this during early voting in Nevada. But in truth, this complies with state law. What it is people who show up and they're still in line when that polling station is meant to close, they're allowed to go in and get that vote, even if it's another hour to get in the building, in effect. So that's what happened in 4 Nevada polling precincts. Trump campaign taking issue with that, and to perhaps lay the groundwork for a legal challenge after the election, they went to a judge and they said, we want these records preserved. We want to know, in effect, who voted before that assigned closing time and who voted after. The judge was very quick to dismiss the case, having to listen to how she handled it.
Why would we issue any kind of a writ? Okay, there's no need to. He's obligated to do it already. I can't obligate him to do something he's already obligated to do. He's already obligated to do it.
The judge's point being there that that's something they already do. They already keep records like that. But it was also interesting, she also took issue with the Trump campaign. The lawyer was asking for the names of polling workers who worked at those sites, potentially make them public, and she said, there's no way I'm going to do that. Have you seen how Twitter trolls, in effect, handle people like that, keeping that information private so that they weren't unleashed with Twitter traffic or other criticism from folks who thought they might not have been doing their job right.
And even though, Jim, polls are still open, we are getting some information in. What are you learning?
That's right, this on voter turnout. So, at this point, it's largely anecdotal because you can't make a final calculation as to what it's going to be across the country. But I'm just going to give you what we're hearing from a number of key states. In Alabama, we just got a report in just in the last few minutes from the deputy director for the Secretary of State of Alabama saying they've never seen turnout this high. In his words, some people have compared it to game day. That's in Alabama. In Mississippi, very high turnout up through the morning, more than they've seen. In Connecticut, we're seeing similar reports of long lines there, longer than usual, according to the state attorney general. In Virginia, turnout way up. So at least state by state, as you know, some of these very key states here, Virginia included, at least from the secretaries of state, early reports are they're seeing turnout higher than normal. Okay.
All right, Jim Sciutto, thanks. Back with my panel now. Mary Catherine, we were talking just a minute ago about Latino voters and women voters and whether or not they have some sort of momentous impact on this election, the suggestion being that they might help Hillary Clinton. As I recall from the Republican National Committee's autopsy about what went wrong in 2012, one of the things that autopsy concluded was the Republicans need to do a better job going after Latino voters and women voters. Do you think there's a chance that going forward, maybe Republicans will consider that those two groups actually should be wooed?
Sometimes one wonders if they've read that report and just decided, let's do the opposite. But, the Trump campaign makes an argument that we are reaching certain segments of these voters. Look, I think it's going to be a really tough uphill uphill battle, and it was an uphill battle before to get those folks to feel like you cared about them and then to listen to your policies, which is the step you have to take. I think Trump has done a great job of that with white working class voters who felt this economic insecurity, but reaching out to new groups is going to be a lot tougher, I think, when there has been this surge for Democrats, which I think you will see some of tonight. And the thing is, too, with young voters, they lock in that preference. That's one thing I'm genuinely worried about for the center-right coalition in the future.
How Rubio does in Florida, that's going to be a real test case in terms of his future. I mean, he had always argued on it that he was the one who could broaden the party, attract Latinos. We've seen a 103% spike in the Latino vote from 2008 to now. And so it interesting is some tickets for these as well.
Decades ago. If Hillary Clinton wins, does she need to reach out to this group in some ways that didn't support her?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's something the Democrats will definitely be looking at. But I think in terms of the Republican Party, the problem that they had before this was that they weren't attracting or appealing to women and Latinos. Now they're actually repelling them, right? Now they're going to have to actually, yeah, they're actually going to have to. And the problem is that a lot of Latinos and a lot of women stood by and watched these other Republican leaders sort of tarnish themselves by not standing up against Trump. And so now they're in an even deeper hole, is my point, I guess. Is that they're not, they have to dig themselves out from a much deeper hole of now convincing people that they just have the basic threshold of trust, that they can trust them to look out for them.
People are writing the headline of Latinos deliver victory prematurely.
Of course, we're just saying if.
Of course, but from the other side, I don't necessarily believe all of these Latinos that have turned out can just be given to Hillary Clinton. I think there are a number of Latinos who care deeply about the economy, Cubans in particular, who realize some of the threats to democracy we see coming from the other side. They have an aversion to kind of totalitarian rules, some of the executive power issues we've seen come out of President Obama, and I think there are going to be Latinos who do show up for Trump. I'm not suggesting he's going to win a majority, but I think there will be at least 20-30% that will vote for Donald Trump.
Mayor Nunn?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you credit for the high-level academic argument. I think the problem here is they did read the memo. They misunderstood the word "go after." So they went after them and insulted women, insulted Latinos, insulted every possible group. And so as we've seen, there's a coalition of the insulted now coming together. And so the problem here is, yes, Latinos, African Americans, Muslims, whatever group you want to talk about, care about those issues, but it's tough to talk about something when someone has insulted you and punched you in the face.
All right, so we're gonna come back on this. We're gonna take a very quick break, much more with the panel ahead on this historic day. The first results, we're just hours away. The first exit poll data is coming within the next 20 minutes. We'll get a preview of that data next.
All right, so I'm gonna take a quick break and cool off my phone. So
Custom event design is his expertise. He can give you the details on cloud computing.
She's an expert in runway operations, but these experts need HR experts to meet today's workplace challenges.
Employee benefit packages,
Talent retention,
corporate telework policy.
HR professionals rely on insurance competency-based certifications to help them drive business success. Credentials that say,
I am ready because I am SURE certified.
alright, I'm gonna cool off my phone so that way I can continue this, and it's gonna be good. So you're gonna be annoyed, but I'm also recording this whole entire thing. So you guys aren't gonna miss a thing. I'll be back.
entire country. In point of fact, CNN is not reporting that. The problem is problems across the county, a county, not the country, as Mr. Trump tweeted. It's a difference of an R, but kind of an important one. Meanwhile, heavy turnout across the country, and not just at the polls. In Rochester, New York, people have been lining up not only to vote, but also to honor a leader of women's suffrage, activist Susan have left their voting stickers at her gravesite on her grave. Let's check in with Suzanne Malvona. She's in Columbus, Ohio. Suzanne.
Well, hey, Jake, it has been very active, very busy at this polling station here. We are at Life Church at Easton. This is part of Franklin County, 3 precincts that are actually voting here. That is 2,400 people expected to vote. More than have actually casted early ballots. I want to give you a sense of what's taking place here. Unlike some of the other polling stations, about 70% in Ohio, that depend on paper ballots, you have 16 voting machines here that they're able to use, and voters actually have an option in terms of whether or not they want to use the voting machines or the paper ballots. These are the paper ballots, and I want to go to our friend Jeff here, who we're talking to, because this is the first time that you've had media here. It's the first time you've had observers. This is a really big deal, and a lot of people have been asking questions about security and the ballot security. How do you guys do this? Because there are 3 different copies in those machines.
That's right. The machine itself has memory where the votes are stored. There is a removable memory cartridge that has the sound of the vote, and there is a paper printout of every choice that every voter made. So that
Suzanne, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you for 1 second.
What their selection was.
Okay,
Suzanne,
all right, Jake.
I'm sorry.
Back to you.
I'm being told that we need to bring you these live pictures of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and her motorcade leaving their compound in Chappaqua, New York, going downtown to Midtown Manhattan, where she will watch the returns in a hotel. There are those live pictures of Secretary Clinton leaving and proceeding to go downtown to New York City. Suzanne, thank you so much for that report. The first polls are going to close a little more than an hour from now in parts of Indiana and Kentucky, with the rest of the country following throughout the evening. It will be a while before CNN or anyone will be able to call any states, but we will be getting the first exit poll information in just about 15 minutes. CNN Political Director David Chalian joins me now. What information are we expecting to see in this information coming in these exit polls?
Right, remember, Jake, these are interviews that we do across the country as people are leaving the polls, telling us how they voted, why they voted, and the kind of information we're going to look for right away is sort of the makeup of the electorate along racial lines, age, education, gender. These are the kinds of things that will sort of look and give us the tapestry of what the electorate looks like tonight, and does it look different than it did 4 years ago, and in what ways, and how that might be advantageous for one candidate or the other. The other thing that we're going to look at is sort of what people were looking for when they went to the polls today, the qualities in the candidates, what motivated their vote, when did they make up their mind, sort of the voter behavior today. Those 2 things, sort of the makeup of the electorate and why the voters are making the choices that they're making today.
All right, David Chalian, thank you so much. Back now with our panel. And Dan Pfeiffer, let me start with you. What are you going to be looking for in this first wave of exit poll results?
I think it's going to be the composition of the electorate. Are we seeing the Obama coalition turning out at a similar rate in 2016 as it did in 2012? If that is the case, then Hillary Clinton will win. If we are seeing some sort of depression in Latino voter, African American voter, millennials, and an increase in older white males, then that'll be good Donald Trump.
Andre, what are you going to be looking for in these first waves of exit poll results?
I think he spot on. Did Trump turn out working class voters in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in Michigan? I mean, the fact that Michigan is now on the table speaks a lot. I don't think Donald Trump gets enough credit. We are talking about an individual that had no political experience, that took on the media, he took on his own party, he took on the Democratic Party, he took on the unions, you name it, he took the UN, he brought discussions that a lot of people, you can laugh if you want, but they're discussions that we've needed for a long time as a country, and a lot of times it alienates voters, but that doesn't mean leaders shouldn't engage in the discussion. So I'm actually thankful that he engaged in some of these discussions, not all of them by any stretch of imagination, but it was a different person that actually said, hey, we've got to do so. We need a wall. We need to have a border in this country. Nobody that's a U.S. citizen should have any problem with that. The fact that we argue that, I'm actually shocked over, but This is different, and he actually, it's amazing what he's done. Nobody gave him any credit early on, and the fact that we're even talking about Michigan shows that he's hit a real nerve in this country.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm looking for is soon-to-be Congressman Dwight Evans and the West-Northwest Coalition out of Philadelphia driving that 400-plus number in the city.
400,000.
400,000
For net positive for Hillary.
For net positive out of Philadelphia. Similar significant activity in the Philly suburbs, and then Bill Peduto and Rich Fitzgerald over in the western side of the state. Put all that together, Hillary Clinton wins Pennsylvania probably 5 or 7 points.
Some shout outs to your Pennsylvania friends there. What are you going to be looking for in these early results?
In exit polls, certainly income level and voters without a college degree. Because if we see a Brexit, if the polls are off by anywhere from 1 to 3 points, that is to say voters didn't answer pollsters, they didn't admit they were going to vote Trump, it's going to be among those voters, and it's going to be in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin's a stretch, but maybe Wisconsin. So I'm going to be looking for heavy turnout from that demographic. If they turn out, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States.
Kirsten, what are you doing?
I think all of the issues that people raise, but then also looking at the issues, right? So if you ask people what's your top issue, do you want change, or do you, so if they want change, I would expect them to go to Donald Trump, or, are you looking for somebody with the temperament to be president, which Hillary Clinton always wins running away. So what are the issues that are really driving people? On terrorism, they're tied. On economy, he's slightly up. So we're looking at how these rank in terms of people's priorities.
What do you think of this debate that this idea of hidden white voters, hidden white working class voters, or hidden white voters with college educations who don't answer the polling questions, that they're not really there, that it's an imagination?
Well, we've seen over time in polling here, not only in this country but in other countries, that there are tendencies for some voters not to give the answer they think the person who's calling on the other end of the line is, especially if it sort of can be offensive in society. So I think there is a possibility of a Brexit type vote. I do think that we've got to look out for that. Is it a Brexit type vote, or is it what that the coalition sticks together? If the coalition sticks together and the Democrats win the popular vote for the 6th time in the 7 elections, that's historic. But I mean, that means the Republicans are on the wrong side of history, and they really need to come back. But on the other hand, this Brexit vote turned out, that's a very different reading of where we are politically.
Yeah, I've heard Pennsylvania Democrats, and including former Governor Edwin Dell, said it publicly, that he thinks that there might be a Trump undervote, people not telling pollsters because they feel like they might be judged negatively for supporting Donald Trump. But in the privacy of the polling place, that they will vote for him. Do you buy it?
No, I think it's an absurd theory. If there is, it seems to be like there would also be a hidden Hillary Clinton vote. I mean, I don't think we've seen any evidence that people, think about Donald Trump's rallies. I mean, 10, 20,000 people, those folks don't seem shy at all. I mean, they're people who love Donald Trump. So this idea that someone would get on the phone and would be ashamed of admitting that they like Donald, it just seems absurd to me.
So they're around people who support Donald Trump. So it doesn't really make sense that
Mary Catherine, what about the people in the suburbs of Philadelphia or Northern Virginia who might be Trump supporters but don't want to be judged?
I think there can be marginal differences about that. I think anytime polling is within 3 points in a lot of these states, it can be off, and it doesn't have to be because of some giant hidden vote. The other question is, if there is a hidden white working class vote, there may also be a hidden Hispanic vote that's hard to poll. I think that's something that pollsters have not completely figured out yet, so they may balance each other out. But I think in any of these places where it's this close, it can go a different way without some giant underlying story. It's just because the polling was close and we don't know the composition, which we will know more about in just a little bit.
In just a few minutes, but until we do, we have to talk about it. Kristen, do you think that there might be a hidden, in the same way that there might be an undervote, a hidden Trump undervote, that there might be a hidden Clinton undervote? In other words, maybe some of these blue-collar women who don't want to advertise that they don't like Donald Trump because they're might feel compelled, or maybe some of these blue-blooded Republican women who don't really want to feel comfortable.
I'm not a big believer in the hidden vote, so I don't think that's going to be a major factor, but it is true there's a lot of division, even if you look at the Catholic vote, the white Catholic vote, which Romney won overwhelmingly, and Trump will probably win with a smaller margin. Part of that reason is because white Catholic women and white Catholic men are probably going to split in how they vote.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, more coverage of Election Day. Thank you so much.
before it became a medicine, it was an idea, a wild what if. So scientists went to work. They examined 87 different protein structures, and for 12 long years. There were thousands of patient volunteers, and the hope of millions. And so after it became a medicine, some who couldn't be cured, could be. Me.
I'm living proof of a dream come true.
Let's take it back to the days, the early days.
And I start from the garage. I work 24 hours around the clock. I'm passing out my own flag, throwing my own party. I could have been a radio DJ, or I could be the biggest DJ. Nothing's impossible. That's the key.
Hey, yo, Pump, what's up, Charlie? Let's get it.
Welcome to the winning team.
Mango Shuan, why not?
Let's get it.
Oh, I'm not a security guard. I'm a security monitor. I only notify people if there's a robbery. There's a robbery.
Why monitor a problem if you don't fix it? That's why free credit monitoring isn't enough to protect you from identity theft. At LifeLock, we not only alert you to identity threats, if you have a problem, we'll spend up to $1 million on lawyers and experts who work to fix it. LifeLock, join starting at $9.99 a month.
Any excuse to come to Japan is a good one.
A sushi legend is taking Tony where it all started.
Man, what's it there?
Sure. Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, Japan, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
I hate asking friends for rides, even if they don't mind. I have a car, but I can't afford car insurance. I have to work.
It's at 9 on CNN.
How old I am means less to me than how well I'm aging. My age is just 29 in telomeres.
Telomeres is a simple DNA test that reveals how well you're aging. Go to teloyears.com to learn how you can get a test kit sent right to your doorstep. Send back a drop of blood, and we'll measure your telomeres, the caps on your DNA that tend to shorten and fray with age. Use your results to improve and track your lifestyle, and discover what your DNA reveals about your age. Just $89 at teloyears.com.
Know how well you're aging.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com.
I got this $1,200 computer for $100.71.
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site. At DealDash.com, you can save up to 99%, but hurry, everything must go.
And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
This is CNN, the world's news network.
We're watching late crowds of voters in Pennsylvania. Our CNN drone is flying over a polling place near Pittsburgh. We're live in many of the crucial battleground states right now that are so critical in determining who will win the White House.
All right, here we
We're
go.
back with a special edition, election night edition, I should say, of the Situation Room. We're counting down to the first results in the presidential race. The votes will start coming in to the CNN Election Center just minutes from now from Indiana and Kentucky, where some polling places close early. Right now, we're getting more insights from our exit poll results. Let's go back to David Challey. And David, what else are you learning?
Hey, well, we are looking at the Barack Obama factor in tonight's election. You saw him campaigning hard out there for Hillary Clinton. Take a look at his approval rating across the country tonight in the exit polls. 54% approve, 45% disapprove. This is about what we had seen in the pre-election polling. That seems to be bearing out among the electorate tonight. Also, we asked, do you want to continue Barack Obama's policies or not? Or do you want the more liberal or conservative? Take a look at this, Wolf. Those that want to continue Barack Obama's policies or want more liberal policies, they add up to about 47% of the electorate. 46% of the electorate today say they want more conservative policies than Barack Obama's policies. Clearly a divided country in terms of the president's policies. And finally, we asked about the feelings of the federal government. I don't think this will surprise anyone paying attention to this election. Well, but take a look at this. Dissatisfied, 46% of voters today with the federal government. Add 23% of angry voters. Take a look at that. That is 69% of voters voting today are either dissatisfied or angry with the federal government. That is what both of these candidates have been trying to respond to throughout this election, Bill.
We're going to get more numbers from you shortly, David. Thanks very much. Jake and Dan are with us. Jake, these numbers, what do they say to you?
Well, they suggest if they hold up, and these are still early-ish exit poll numbers, that this could be a long night in a competitive race, a very divided country, and if a lot of people feel resentful of Washington, that's significant. 54% supporting President Obama, approving of the job he's done. That's also significant, and it shows what we've been saying all along, that this could be a very competitive race.
The fact that Barack Obama's approval rating is well above 50% is very telling, and it is so different from what we've seen in recent history with a president on their way out, Republican or Democrat, and it is a reminder of why Hillary Clinton has done something unusual, which is embrace a two-term president and effectively run on a third term.
Well, there are a lot of angry voters based on these numbers out there that, as you say, Jake, that seems to vote relatively well for Donald Trump.
It would. I mean, that is the message that he's been driving home since the very moment he came down the escalator in the summer of 2015. The government is broken. It's not working for you when it comes to trade deals. It's not working for you when it comes to immigration or terrorism. And as he's been saying the last few weeks, it's time to drain the swamp of Washington, D.C. That has been a very powerful message. And obviously, it's taken root in the minds of a lot of voters.
We're only 15 minutes away, Dana, or so from the first actual votes coming in. Exit poll numbers are important. They give us a clue, an indication. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not so right, but votes obviously count.
That's the whole ballgame, no question about it. And it is going to be so fascinating to see as those vote boards come in, as you start to read them, whether or not what we've been looking at, whether it is the divide in terms of the way that voters want this country to go, or the divide with regard to these two candidates bear out in how we see these states come out.
Let's go over to Anderson for some analysis. Anderson.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. Kirsten, I mean, as we look at again, more of this exit polls, and again, it's very early in the evening, just a reminder of just how divided this nation is. I mean, essentially split evenly on whether they want policies akin to President Obama's or more liberal, or the complete opposite.
And angry. And, you know, and there was a poll right before the election that had 2/3 of all voters saying that they were ashamed to be an American. So you have a very unhappy electorate right now. But I think if you look at the breakdown, and I think we have to remember there are a lot of early voters, and so the composition might be a little different when you add that in, but it doesn't look that different from the composition in 2012. So these are early numbers, we have to wait and see, but right now we have white voters about 2 points down, black voters about 1 point down, Hispanic up 1, and Asian up 1. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see as the night goes on if that changes and how the overall composition, once we factor everything together.
But as Kirsten pointed out, in early voting, certainly in a state like Florida, we've seen a much larger turnout of Latino voters. Yeah. And a different sort of Latino voter, not just sort of traditional Cuban voters. We have much more Latino population in Florida now from South America, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, you see some change in terms of the Asian vote in a place like North Carolina. I mean, they're voting, you see a voting surge there as well with Latinos and all across the South. I mean, those two voting blocks are the fastest growing voting blocks, and historically, they haven't had the turnout numbers that African Americans have had or whites have had. I mean, this is going to be the most diverse electorate that America has ever seen, and we have in Donald Trump a candidate that hasn't always known how to reach out to those groups, and in many ways has repelled them. I think the fact that they're showing up in such numbers certainly speaks to Donald Trump, and also I think speaks to a lot of these grassroots organizations across the country, like Voto Latino, that have been registering these groups in droves.
It also speaks to where the future of the country is going.
Yeah. Well, the future's here already.
That will be the biggest question answered tonight or early tomorrow, or hopefully not in weeks. But, you know, the rationale behind a lot of the Republican consternation over Trump, people who are not voting for Trump, was two things. One, it's kind of a bad look for conservatives, as the kid would say. Two, that he wasn't going to be electable in a general because of the changing demography of the country. That will bear out. We will find out if that's actually true tonight. But it's funny, when you go back, and I went back through some of the polling in the Republican primary about whether voters prioritized electability, They really didn't. If they had, we would have Marco Rubio or John Kasich as the nominee. So this issue, this angst over Republicans, putting up an electable candidate might have really just been from strategists and analysts, because clearly it wasn't that important to the electorate.
David?
When Bill Clinton ran for 92, 88% of the electorate was Caucasian white. Hillary Clinton runs at 70%. The numbers are coming down. And that's why for both parties, appealing to the minority vote matters. And I think one of the questions, if Donald Trump loses, he may win. Some would suggest he could still win this thing. But if he loses, there's going to be a big question about the Republican Party relationship, especially to Latinos. I would point out that California used to be a purple state. Republicans could win California at the presidential level. In the 1990s, the Republicans put a ballot out there, Proposition 187, that stuck a stick right in the eyes of Latinos. And Latinos went over to the Democratic side, and California has been a blue state ever since. It went off the board. If that happens nationwide, the Republicans are going to fracture this party.
There's been so much talk of the autopsy that's done by the Republican Party in 2012. If Donald Trump does not win tonight, there's going to be autopsies.
But do they just re-release that same autopsy?
I really don't think an autopsy is needed. The reason will be very clear, and it will be because the results of that autopsy were completely sort of overlooked or ignored by
but within the Republican Party, there's always a difference of opinion, or that there wasn't a true conservative candidate.
Right.
There'll be that argument made.
And that's the thing. As I keep saying, Donald Trump might do better than Mitt Romney.
Right.
He's going to win Ohio possibly. He's going to win Iowa possibly. He could just win the whole thing on this strategy that was really about white voters, right? And so,
but to lose to a candidate in Hillary Clinton who has 54% disapproval rating going into the election, and if you still lose, then you've got to do some soul searching.
But the Republicans have got to do some soul searching anyway, because there were a lot of Republicans that wanted somebody talking about things that Republicans for too long have talked about but hadn't done. And that's reforming Washington. That's getting, the Republicans allowed the budget to be spent over $1 trillion last year, so they haven't demonstrated what a conservative is. And there are a lot of people out there saying the Republicans haven't shown anything different than the Democrats, and that's why Donald Trump was successful this year. There's problems within the party itself with an identity.
I think one of the things that you're going to see tonight, and Nia brought this up, and I think that Hillary Clinton's going to have a more difficult time winning a state like Ohio and Iowa, where she's going to fare much better than people think in a state like Florida. And then you see North Carolina, which is in the deep south, actually turning purplish blue. And I think that for a long period of time, you're going to be able to put Iowa and Ohio in the red category, and we're getting to the point where you can put Florida and North Carolina in the blue category. And what that shows is the shifting of demographics in this country. I've said here many times with you, Anderson, I said that Donald Trump's number one problem, the thing that will beat Donald Trump in November, and we're here now, is demographics. It was true when he was nominated, and it's very true now. And unless the Republican Party adapts, there was a picture taken, I know Maria wants to get in, but there was a picture taken in South Carolina during the South Carolina primary. There was a picture of Trey Gowdy, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, and Nikki Haley. It was what the Republican Party wanted their future to look like. The next day, Corey Lewandowski went out and beat them by 20 points in the South Carolina primary. And so the Republican Party has a real problem of how it wants to look in the future.
Corey, where are you tonight? Obviously, we've talked about this before. Florida's a must-win state for Donald Trump. You still don't agree with that? Yeah? Absolutely. What other states are you looking for that path to 270? And where do you see the best?
So I think the path that most people agree is best for Donald Trump is you have to win Florida. You're going to carry the Romney states. That would include carrying North Carolina. As you know, Mitt Romney went into North Carolina down 450,000 votes on election day and came out ahead of Barack Obama by 77,000. Donald Trump's numbers were much better than that. I think you would include the state of New Hampshire there. And then I think if you look at the battleground states which are in play, Donald Trump is going to win the state of Ohio. No Republican has carried that state in 2 presidential election cycles. He is going to win Iowa. It's a foregone conclusion. Barack Obama wanted to go there, and he was told not to go there because they are so concerned about the state of Michigan that Barack Obama was in Michigan on the eve of the election, making sure that state stays blue. We will see if that is going to happen. What we do know is that the African-American turnout in Detroit is 50% of what it was 4 years ago. What we do know is that the blue-collar voters have historically, we do know that from the early polling, of course we know that. What we also know is that the blue-collar voters are exactly in line with Donald Trump because they've been hammered by bad trade deals, which Hillary Clinton has called the gold standard. And now they're trying to change that. The Democrats are campaigning in Michigan. That is where a state that's a great opportunity for Donald Trump. And then you look at Colorado, where he's got a 16,000 vote lead going into Election Day. That's unheard of for a Republican in a state like that.
So, Marie, when you hear Corey's idea of where the path is, do you buy that?
It's still, I mean, sure, anything is possible. It's still very narrow, it's very steep, and it's riddled with thickets and thorns and holes that Donald Trump himself dug. The first one being, if he loses tonight, he will have started that loss the minute that he came down that escalator after he called Mexican immigrants rapists, criminals, and drug lords. There is an exit poll that, actually an election eve poll that Latino Decisions does, and they're the premier polling firm for Hispanics in this country. They did it last night. They did it last night. 5,000 Hispanics, and they do it bilingually, which is how you're supposed to poll Latino voters. They said the